Let's find out today how long it takes to get delivery food delivered to your doorstep here in China. Today, I'm ordering from a cafe called Drunk Baker that's about 3 kilometers away from my office. Now, when I place the order, it actually pings out a message to all the local delivery people who can see different orders in the local area and pick them up. So today, a driver named Xiaoma picked up my order. Let's follow his journey and see how this goes.谢谢你，
别，
非常辛苦啊！
没关系。
你让我给你一个小费吧。
啊，谢谢啊。
好，辛苦了，
再见，
拜拜。没有。
So here in China, what does this catchy rhyming phrase "why my" actually mean? It basically stands for food delivery or takeout. Basically, food delivered directly to your door. Around the world, COVID accelerated the rise of all these different delivery services, including food delivery. But what's happening here in China in terms of food delivery has far eclipsed what's already happened in the US. But before we talk about how things work here in China, let's understand first how things work in the United States. In the USA, even in Silicon Valley, where I'm from, you have to wait at least 30 minutes to receive a delivery order from an online vendor. Now, if you go online and start to look into some of these stories, you realize 30 minutes is pretty optimistic. Oftentimes there's cases where people have to wait 1 hour, 2 hours, and sometimes people have their orders canceled completely. Additionally, beyond these orders being slow to actually get to you, they're quite expensive. So when you order an item in the US, not only are you paying for the food, but you're also paying for the delivery fee and for something that's called a service fee that's applied by the provider. In addition to these two things, oftentimes the delivery people themselves are going to expect a tip. And according to the tipping culture that's available in the US, often people are going to expect anywhere between 5, 10, even up to 20% for delivering a given item atop those existing fees we just discussed. So right now I live here in Shanghai. The population of Shanghai as of 2019 was around 24 million people. And in terms of population density, Shanghai has roughly 35,000 people per square mile. Now, New York City, one of the most populous cities in the United States, has around 28,000 people per square mile. In San Francisco, in Silicon Valley, where I'm from, there's only about 18,000 people per square mile, so just over half the density of Shanghai. But Shanghai isn't the only city in China with lots of people packed in closely together. Beijing has around 30,000 people per square mile, and Shenzhen has even more, with approximately 44,000 people per square mile. So, what does this allow for? Because the customers for these products and services are clustered so closely together, it means that you can increase the speed with which you make each individual delivery, but also minimize the time that's lost between each delivery that you make. Because of lower labor costs, the price for one individual delivery can be quite cheap here in China. So it's about $1 for one delivery placed here, as opposed to approximately $5 per delivery placed in the US. Part of the reason for these cheap prices may also be due to the competition between the internet giants in China who are competing for these customers making delivery orders. Companies like Eleme and Meituan offer all kinds of different discounts and vouchers in order to encourage people to place more orders so that these companies can capture a larger market share of the delivery space. Now, the ultimate benefactor of this is consumers who get lower and lower prices for each delivery that they make. So, strangely, it's often cheaper for a consumer to place an order through a delivery platform than it would be for them to leave the office and walk to that same restaurant and order the same food. Now, it's worth noting that there is a tipping function that's built into these Chinese delivery apps, but it's not used quite as much. So China isn't a culture with as much tipping in situations like taxis or in restaurants. So for this reason, tipping just doesn't quite happen as often in China in terms of delivery apps. Another area of innovation when it comes to the speed of this service is about intelligent route planning. The internet companies that have created these platforms are incentivized to allow drivers to deliver as many orders as possible, as quickly as possible. Therefore, there's been a tremendous investment to figure out the best way to route these drivers so that they're able to deliver the maximum number of orders in the shortest amount of time. So these online delivery platforms can take various orders and bundle them together into one route. This means that a driver can deliver multiple orders at the same time with the mapping and navigation directions provided by the app. So by bundling these orders together, these delivery platforms can increase the number of orders that are delivered by each rider, which also increases the overall transaction volume for these delivery platforms themselves. But how do these drivers actually perform economically? Let's take a look. China's delivery industry isn't necessarily the horrible boss you might expect. In big cities like Shanghai and Shenzhen, an order delivered on time normally earns the driver 7 RMB, or about $1 in commission. A driver completing 1,000 orders or more in a month could earn up to 10,000 RMB, about 1,400 US, after accounting for baseline salary. That number clocks in well above the average monthly salary in Shanghai of around 6,500 RMB, according to 2016 figures, from the city's Human Resources and Social Security Bureau. So beyond the drivers, we've also learned that individual end consumers can benefit greatly due to the low cost of these delivery services. But what about the internet companies themselves? Two key players, Meituan and Eleme, make up about 90% of the online delivery space here in China. It's important to remember that these two companies are still, even now, competing for share of this market, which means that they're going to offer competitive vouchers and discounts that the companies need to pay out themselves in order to capture a larger share of the market. But as of 2019, Meituan, which is the leading player in this delivery space, was finally able to achieve profitability, after years of having been pre-profitable or loss-making. So this speaks to the competitiveness and difficulty of the market. They spent years investing in vouchers and discounts just to get to this final profitable position. However, it's important to note that as with many disruptive technologies, there are often human consequences. In an effort to optimize the delivery speeds that are delivered to these end consumers, these platforms are often going to push drivers to deliver as many orders as possible in a very short amount of time. Now, the AI systems developed by these delivery platforms are highly intelligent, and they can figure out how long it takes for an individual route or distance to be covered by the average driver. What this means for drivers is that they're suddenly accountable to deliver each of their orders in a predetermined amount of time determined by the platform itself. But beyond these algorithms, drivers themselves are also economically incentivized to deliver as many orders as possible in a short amount of time. So they do get a base wage, which is around 1,500 RMB, around $200 per month. However, this isn't enough to make ends meet, so they need to deliver many delivery orders in order to get a high salary on a monthly basis. But this creates a real risk, and there have been documented cases of injuries and even deaths that have been caused by drivers who are rushing to fulfill these orders as quickly as possible. Now, other externalized factors like weather can introduce even more risk for the drivers. So imagine a rainstorm. In a rainstorm, average people are going to be sitting at home trying to avoid the bad weather. The drivers themselves are going to receive even more orders from people who are stuck inside their own houses. At the same time, they're themselves having to deal with the rainstorm, the effects, the slick roads, the dangerous traffic conditions, with an increased number of orders proportionate to what they would ordinarily have. If the algorithms don't adjust the delivery times in these dangerous conditions, you're going to have drivers who are incentivized to actually take more risks, which further increases the risks of injuries and accidents. Beyond the risks associated with rapid delivery and bad road conditions, there's another issue for these delivery platforms, which is about waste and environmental impact. The sheer volume of transactions that's taking place on a daily basis in major Chinese cities is astounding. So take Beijing, for example. Beijing is processing around 2 million delivery orders per day. This would be like if the population of Houston was ordering delivery meals every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Oh, LED's gone off. We're going to have to tweak that. This has created tremendous pressure on Chinese cities and their landfill systems, where certain landfills are filling up 5, 10, or even 25 years ahead of schedule. If this generation of waste isn't stemmed somehow, it's going to become a serious environmental threat. But it's not all bad news. So let's take a look and figure out what the future holds in terms of YMI in 2021 and beyond. So the first thing we want to talk about is drones. When people talk about food delivery in the future, they often say, well, we can have intelligent drones who are delivering orders all over the city. They're flying up and down, they're flying orders in through people's windows, etc. But the problem is this technology is not ready for prime time. So when it comes to safety, the intelligence of these systems, liaising with organizations like the FAA and other organizations that govern commercial airspace, these systems just aren't ready. So when it comes to the future of drone delivery, it might be something we could do in 5, 10, 15 years, but here and now in 2021, it's not there yet. The second future trend when it comes to delivery in 2021 and beyond is about finding ways to reduce the amount of waste. So in China, Chinese governmental organizations have actually issued a variety of laws and regulations to stem the flow of this waste and decrease pollution. On January 19th, lawmakers from the National Development and Reform Commission revealed a new policy to reduce consumption of single-use plastics. For starters, non-biodegradable plastic bags will be banned across all major cities by the end of 2020, and disposable drinking straws will no longer be permitted in restaurants. Beyond requiring reductions in packaging, cities like Shanghai have also required their residents to start to separate their own garbage into categories like dry waste, what's called wet waste, which is food waste, and recyclables. So by doing this, you're able to sort these different types of garbage and ensure that recyclables are recycled and disposables are disposed of properly. Finally, YMI organizations themselves have started to charge consumers for their use of single-use cutlery. So this also creates an incentive for people to use their own cutlery at home, which isn't disposable. While these various efforts won't instantly fix the problem, they're a good start. So the third thing we want to talk about when we talk about the future of YMI in 2021 is the way that these delivery platforms are starting to adjust their algorithms. So recently there's been a lot of feedback from consumers. Certain consumers are saying, well, actually I don't mind if my delivery order is 2, 5, or even 10 minutes late. In light of this, companies are also starting to tweak their algorithms to give a bit more leniency to the delivery drivers. And the knock-on effect of this is they might not be as compelled to take risks, to break traffic laws and regulations, and otherwise put themselves at risk. However, there is still a problem because these delivery drivers are still economically incentivized to deliver as many orders as possible, as quickly as possible, because that's how they get the majority of their compensation. So until the cities start to enforce traffic regulations a little bit more strictly, or until these various delivery platforms increase the base wage of delivery drivers, you still might see a lot of this kind of risky behavior going. So that's a broad summary of where we're at with food delivery in 2021. Beyond food, there's also a variety of other innovations in the space happening, including delivery of services, groceries, even things like COVID testing. So in future videos, we're going to cover some of these other areas about YMI outside of just food. But for now, thank you for watching. This is Jim Fields from Greater China Tech.